actively repurposing our historic buildings is a sustainable approach that is absolutely needed to help reduce our carbon footprint and to promote equity in all neighborhoods. The home preservation program that I direct guides homeowners throughout the city on the repair and maintenance of their older homes that respects and preserves the home's architectural character. The historic sheep farmhouse that will be presented today was first and foremost a home. And it is a rural vernacular building type that is rapidly disappearing from our city. Today, we'll learn from our presenter, Miranda Nicasio, recent graduate of the Savannah College of Art and Design, about the significance of this building and the research and documentation she did for this case study. We're fortunate that during this time of COVID, Miranda's classes were all remote and she was living in Columbus. So we were able to connect her to this building for her classwork, and in turn, we received so much valuable data and insight that confirms why this building was important for us to have included on our Columbus Landmarks 2020 Endangered Buildings list. We want to especially thank Columbus Recreation and Parks Department for the opportunity to investigate this historic building that sits on 85 acres that will become a new city park and community hub. We also congratulate the firm MKSK on being selected to design this new park. We eagerly anticipate their creative vision for this place. And we are very grateful to Roy Wenzel and the Friends of the Historic Sheep Farm for their continued commitment to saving this farm and farmhouse for their community to enjoy and for future generations to understand and appreciate the historical and cultural context of this important site. So just a few housekeeping notes. Your mics should be on mute, but you may ask questions at any time using the chat box that's at the bottom of the screen. We'll try to answer all questions, but if we run out of time or you have questions afterwards, we'll have emails listed at the end. Please feel free to contact us. For AIA credit, you need to log into your AIA My account and view your course. If you have any questions on that, please email ces@aia.org. So at this time, I'm pleased and excited to turn the meeting over to Miranda Nicasio. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everyone can see everything okay here. All right, so thank you, Susan, for that great introduction and telling them a little about me and the project of the historic sheep farmhouse. This is the house. It's an incredible building, as we'll learn as we go through this presentation. What I did specifically while at SCAD was a HABS report, so the Historic American Building Survey, which entails full documentation of the building, both interior and exterior. So to get things started, these are a few topics we'll cover: the historic context of the home and the property, its architectural information. There will be a condition assessment, but I want you to note that this was purely based on visual inspection. There were no tests taken, but as I'm sure you know, we can learn a lot just looking at a building. There will be initial documentation and what HABs required for that, the final drawings, and then how this impacts our environment. A little bit about myself. As Susan mentioned, I am a recent graduate from SCAD. I have a master's in preservation design. I am also a lead GA and a member of Sigma Pi Kappa. And again, we have our one credit here for AIA. Our first learning objective will be to learn the history of one of the area's last remaining farmhouse structures and the people who inhabited it over the years. Our second objective will be to understand the HABS research process and the goals of the program and the requirements and procedures of documenting a historic building. The third objective will be to examine the architectural details and materials that identify this vernacular architectural style and the construction techniques. Learn and understand the existing building condition, which will serve as a resource in the building's renovation. And lastly, our fourth objective will be to understand how saving and repurposing even smaller historic buildings helps to meet carbon neutrality goals. And it's important to preserving the cultural identity of an area and enhancing its sense of place. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to touch on the historic context first, which is one of my favorites. I love digging around. I love trying to figure out where this all started. So this building was built by Henry and Esther Matters in 1880. So that means this house is over 140 years old, which is incredible. It was later sold to William F., and Maud Lane. It's thought that due to the rising farming costs of this time, the need for larger, newer equipment, the Matters family probably couldn't afford to upkeep the property and the house. So that's why they were prompted to sell it to the Lane family. It is also thought, and in my research and search of records, they were able to maintain and use the house and property, but not use it for livestock or agricultural purposes. So they really just enjoyed their land. They did have children. They had a daughter named Dolores, their son named Donald. Sadly, there was quite a bit of death in the family. Donald passed away at 18 years old. Later, Maud, so the mother, passed away. And shortly after that, Dolores also passed away. So very tragic, very sad. But later, William remarried a woman named Arla Elliott, who had previously been married to Harry, which, fun fact, was Harry Clover. He was part of the Clover family, which was a family among some of the first pioneers of the United States, of the country. And his father served in the Civil War. So unbeknownst to Arla, she was bringing quite a bit of history to this house just by living there. But later, the Clover family had established Prairie Township, which was a municipality named Prairie because of the tall grasses, which we can see there today. And then later that neighbored Perry Township, and those both became part of Franklin County, which is where the farmhouse resides today. Later in 1954, the Lane family sold the property to Ohio State University. At this time, OSU's College of Food and Agriculture and Environmental Sciences collected the property and decided to house livestock and sheep there. And it's thought that the sheep farm came to be named this because of the sheep and livestock they had there. In 2019, so not too long ago, OSU sold the property to Columbus Recreation and Parks Department, which is why we're here today. Hoping to save this building and incorporate it into the amazing park that these new owners now are going to turn this into. So now we're going to get into a little bit about the style of the building. Typical to federal style architecture, this is brick masonry. It has a symmetrical form, simple rectangular plan, aside from the little jet out of an L plan. There are typically federal style are 2 to 3 stories high. In this case, for the sheep farmhouse, it's 2 stories with basement. There is a hip roof with exposed rafters. We'll get a better look at those later on. And windows with wooden lintels and sills, which are 3 ranked. So here's a closer image. You can see the detailed brickwork, the wooden lintels and the stone base here at the bottom. Again, we'll get a closer look too as we continue on. So we are going to go into the condition assessment, starting with the exterior of the building, so the structure. With the foundation, the house is a slab with footing, stacked stone walls, which are in very good condition considering the time period, and a crawl space. And the porch is west of the house. We'll have a better look at that later on, with a pure foundation and concrete blocks and wood holding it up. So here we can see the concrete slab there at the bottom, the stone, which has been painted over. I do not think that was original. and the brick and mortar. In this, we have a better look at the pier foundation for the porch. Notice that there were concrete blocks used here. That is most likely not true to the time. My guess would be that originally it used to be wooden pillars or wooden blocks holding that up, but they most likely deteriorated over time. So thus the concrete blocks there. Here's another angle of that same porch. I did want to point out some biological growth over here to the left, possibly some efflorescence here, but we won't know for sure unless there was a closer look. So again, still in pretty good condition. This is the basement. We see the stone foundation here, we're on the concrete. And here you can see the pathway to the crawl space and conduit and whatnot just being filtered through those beams. Then we move on to the floor joists. This is part of the partial basement. In moderate condition, it doesn't seem they have been exposed to any water damage, termites, things like that. It's really just wear over time. The wood joists run north to south. It seems, and you can see closer in those pictures, the picture to the right, there was a temporary steel column beam installed. That was most likely installed when OSU had its ownership of the building. It is reinforced and it runs perpendicular to the wood joists. And I apologize for the quality of photos. It was very dim in this basement. But you can see a little wear. You can see a little rusting on that steel beam, but that it is reinforced. And again, here we get a closer look. These are the walls of the historic farmhouse. For the exterior, materials that were used included brick, mortar, stone, and wood. The method for the building it would be balloon frame construction, and there are a few indicators of this I'll go through as the presentation continues. But in this case, the brick is in course and the stone is random in the foundation. You could see a little in those previous photos. Here we can see some slight cracking along the mortar lines. It seems that there was some patching done, but almost haphazardly. It is in adequate condition, aside from the later addition, which seems to be weathered. We'll take a look at that. But first, I want you to notice the cracking along the mortar line here. Again, it seems like it was a Band-Aid fix, just temporarily patched over with proper repointing. That's something that could be easily fixed. And then here we see some black crusting. That's right next to the window on the sill there. And that's most likely caused from pollution. But that, again, is something that can be taken care of and removed. And then here we get a better look at that porch with the pier foundation that I had mentioned previously. It was a later addition. I do not believe it was original to the building. And then here we can see that paint that is starting to bubble and chip off from the wood. Again, if adequately and properly taken care of, this would be a simple renovation. And then here are the interior walls, nothing too exciting, but based off this sun glare that you can kind of see to the left of this photo, I believe that this was plaster. It was drywall and then plastered over. Probably because of the time period of the house and when it was built, it was originally lath with plaster over it. Based off visual inspection, the condition is really good. It seems that OSU had gone in there to patch it up and fix the interior very well. This was utilized as a student space, so there were people residing in the sheep farmhouse. which makes sense as to why they would fix the interior more so. All right, and here we are at the roof. You can kind of see we're working our way up here. Materials and methods for the roof, wood frame roof system, hip and valley roof. We can, in a later picture, see the little valley from the L. They're exposed rafter tails, asphalt shingles, which again, I don't believe are original to the time, and attached gutter system. It seems the conditions have been repaired over time, yet there is some fading in the flashing for the chimneys, which we can see better here on the bottom photo, if you take a close look. And then here we see the rafter ends and the overhang a little bit closer. And you can get a good idea of that brick as well. And then here I wanted to bring attention to is probably inadequate patching, or inappropriate, I should say, restoration techniques for cracking in the mortar. It seems someone just kind of threw on a water sealant, which isn't recommended, especially because it does stand out like this, and it does not help with the historic integrity of the building. So when doing restoration and repurposing, we don't want to see something like this. All right. Now I'd like to move on to the finishes of the building. I'll just breeze through this. This is the HVAC systems. The fireplace, though, that was believed to have heated the entire first floor, possibly. It's a small space, but it definitely heated that main living room area. It seems to have been patched over. There is no documentation of when that took place, but unfortunately it did. So there is no opening left there. We do see a newer water heater, and that ties into the furnace. And then we see the furnace and ductwork. That just provides the air conditioning throughout the building, and it goes through this crawl space and eventually up into the second floor. But again, that fireplace is original to the building and could be reopened at any point. There we get a closer look as well. And the dirty basement, which I won't spend too much time on, and then the newer furnace, or excuse me, water heater. All right. The ceiling, there are a few things I want to point out. On the second floor here, we see a much smoother finish to the ceiling, most likely drywall over that. Here is an attic entrance in the second floor hallway with the bedrooms, and this goes further to prove that this was most likely a balloon frame construction. And then here in one of the closets upstairs, we do see some molding due to most likely water damage. It's interesting because this isn't seen on the exterior of the building. My wonder is that it may have come from the roof, and that's why it was replaced later on. This is the kitchen. We can see this line in nearly the middle of the picture. That is where the later addition was made. So you can kind of see it. It was done haphazardly almost, but still in good condition. And then for the first floor ceilings, those are just textured. And then going on to the fixtures, we see a newer circuit breaker panel. There's mild deterioration on the electrical meter and box, that probably just from being outside and being weathered. The fixtures do vary throughout the building. I think it's because of the different owners that have gone through here. They go from minimalistic to ornate. There is some decorative tin pendant, as we saw in the kitchen, fluorescent lighting, and then 3-prong outlets and modern daylight switches. So those were definitely added on over time. The plumbing is in good condition. It's, again, it was added on later in time, so it's pretty up to date. There are a few close-ups of that. We can see the minimalistic here, all the way to a different, probably more original to the time fixture there. And then you can see the metal sink. The kitchen is definitely probably added in the 80s and switched up. And then the nice, I don't know if you saw the nice bugs in the sink there, so I point that out. Now, one of my favorites is the doors. I think the doors and doorknobs can add a lot of character to a building in terms of a finish. They're simple, they're very indicative of the federal style. The front door is 2-panel door with the 2/3 of it being glass. And there is a screen over the top of that. The interior doors are 4-panel doors painted white, and that is all around the interior. So that, I think, based off visual inspection, it seemed that the second floor doors were very close to the time it was built, so original. And the lower floors seem to be made to imitate those. So not original on the first floor. The hardware ranges again from original to modern. Similar to the lighting fixtures, they go anywhere from a simple metal back plate to a more ornately detailed plate with a round knob. And we can take a closer look at these also. So that's the front door, that's the main entrance. There are locks on there that are much older as well. And then these are the doors that are most likely original, but were painted white over time. So the white is not traditional or original to the building. And then these are some newer doorknobs. That one on the left is from the 19th century. And these others were most likely added on. And then here's a modern or a original hinge, which could be beautiful if there weren't so much paint over it. So that would be nice to fix. And then the windows, very simple. They're newer windows. They're 1/1 single hung. The frames, so the wooden lintels and sills, those are original to the building, but they're in very good condition just because they are much newer windows, which means the building is much more insulated as well. And then there's a closer look. Again, we can kind of see that black crust at the bottom. That's something you want to keep an eye out for. And then some efflorescence there right underneath, probably from water dripping down. Then last for the interior is the flooring. So we have the basement, which we discussed is concrete. The first floor is carpet, and the kitchen, which I did not show here, has linoleum tile. Again, not original to the building, neither is the carpet. What I do believe is original is that picture on the right-hand side. The second floor was covered in carpet, but there was a little part, I didn't pull that up all by myself. It was already coming up, let me know. But I took a peek at it, and it seemed that the wood underneath is original to the building. So that could be beautifully restored for someone to take the time to do that. We've seen the basement there, the carpeting there, and then that's the wood floor. Should it be refinished, would be very beautiful. All right. And now the fun part. These are the field notes that I took. This is how I met Susan. Actually, I needed access to the interior of the building. With HAB's surveys, you need to be able to measure every nook and cranny inside of the building. So dimensions need to be taken to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. These measurements are recorded a little bit differently. They are actually separated by periods, and it goes feet, inches, and then 1/8 of an inch. And then there's an example right here at the bottom. But we'll go ahead and take a closer look at these. So another thing that needs to be noted is the thickness of the walls. Excuse me. And the stairs, the rise and run of the stairs, the windows, how deep the sills go, things like that. That's what we're seeing here. And then full length. So from wall 1 to wall 2, we need to see the full thing. But this is the front portion. This is the front door right here. Minimal labeling is asked by the documenter from Hvac. So that's why the rooms aren't really labeled, because we're not 100% sure what they were utilized for. Again, this is the back half. So we see on the lower right here, that is part of the later addition, which, since it is part of the house currently, it does need to be documented, even though it wasn't original to the building. So with Hvac, you need to document it as it stands. And then this is the second floor. Some of the wood flooring there is noted. It does not need to be in great detail. Really, again, the most important part of these field notes are the measurements. And then this is the elevation. It was sure to be noted the full height. The roof needed to be noted. There's some brick, which you'll see later as I continue. The brick needed to be drawn in exactly as it is. There is no predetermined hatching that I can use in AutoCAD, so or Revit or anything like that. I had to do it one by one. So later on, when you see the final drawings, those are actually, that is the pattern of the coursing. So we'll take a look at those final drawings here. This is a site plan. You get a general overview of where the house is located. We see right to the north is the Ohio State University Airport. So that's just, I'm sure you may be familiar with it. If you're not, it's just a smaller airport that some private airlines fly into and students can learn from. Then in the back here, that is where the Recreation and Parks Department is working on their beautiful plans for the park. And the house sits right in that. What isn't shown is that all surrounding it is a very densely populated community and area with apartments and condos and houses and restaurants and commercial buildings and so on. So to have this open piece of land and all of that is pretty significant. These are the drawings. As I mentioned previously with the north elevation, each brick, so each course is as it is at the house. This is not a predetermined hatching or anything. This is as it was. And same thing with the asphalt shingles above. And the stone indicated here shows how it was. Again, it was kind of random in the house, so that was not predetermined either. That was all done individually. And with these, you see minimal measurements, which is very different from the field notes. Again, it's another requirement from Hvac. They just want the basic and overall information. So you don't see nearly as many of the measurements as we did in the field notes. But here is a building section, and there's a section key here, so you can kind of see where we cut things for the building. And then these are the floor plans. So we can see a much thicker foundation for the basement. And then as we move up to the first floor, nothing was noted here in terms of a carpet, because that was not original to the building and it was not required by Hvac. Whereas on the second floor, since we do know that wood flooring is under there, that was noted directly because it's a fact. We know it was there. And then these are just a few details. Again, you have to know everything for the building. So I went through and did all the trim moldings and the header trims and the fireplace that I had pointed out as well. Because it's part of the building as is today, I left the covered fireplace covered, if you will. So in regard to environmental sustainability, this farmhouse offers a very important sense of place for Columbus. I mean, yes, we've been through that. It's over 140 years old, and there was a very important family that lived here, but a sense of place indicates what our history is and where we come from, where Columbus comes from, and where we started. And this is one of the last remaining pieces of that history. Without it, I think we lose a large part of who we are as a community and where we started from. For this to be established by the wife of one of the founding families here is very significant. And for it to be in the great condition it's in just adds that much more value. The embodied energy, which I'll just touch on this a little, it's the amount of energy that it took to source and construct the building. So that is already in place with an existing structure. They already took all the time, all the resources, all the energy in 1880 to build this house, and that's what we have today. So it is actually more pertinent and important to save its embodied energy and rehabilitate it rather than demolishing it, thus sending all those materials to a landfill that just adds to the problem. It's also much more cost effective in most cases to fund or repair for a historic resource rather than demolish it. Again, we're saving those materials and we're fixing them to where, and again, based off visual inspection, this is not something that can't be fixed or that can be repurposed, or it can't be repurposed. It can be. And as we've seen through the condition assessment. And then this also aids in carbon neutrality, which there's a really interesting study noted here, the greenest building, quantifying the environmental value of building reuse. It's a very interesting study, and I would recommend reading it, and I'm sure all your free time. But they determined that reusing an existing building or upgrading it to be as efficient as possible is almost the best choice. So by utilizing this building as possibly an information center for the park, it serves such a greater purpose. And then this is true to the fact that regardless of building type and climate and the materials as well. So I may have breezed through that a little quickly, but we do want to thank everybody for being here. And as Susan mentioned earlier, everyone who's been involved with this, we truly thank you. I would love to open it up for questions if anyone has anything for me. I know we went through a lot of content. So Susan or Patty, I don't know if you're there, but was there anything asked along the way?
Maybe just to note, Roy had corrected us in that the park is really actually 57.7 acres rather than the 85 acres. So,
Okay.
so noted in the
Thank
chat
you.
box. My bad.
Thank you.
I do hope that everybody appreciates the amount of time and research that went into this. This, this kind of study is invaluable. It just is a record of the past, regardless of what happens to the building. And of course, we hope that it is repurposed. It's really just invaluable documentation. It is incredibly specific and accurate. And thank you to Miranda for all the time that this took. Not every building gets to have a HABS report. And I find these are incredibly invaluable. So
Definitely. And it was a lot of fun to go through. I mean, this is my niche. So I did enjoy it. I learned a lot about the building. My overall document is over 46 pages. So there is a lot to cover and go over. So thank you for listening.
Our pleasure, for sure. And if there are no other questions or comments, you have our email address there. Oh, wait a minute, here we go. There's one.
Roy, are you raising a hand?
Well,
Yes,
here we are. Do you think the building was built from a standard plan, or was an architect involved?
Based off my research, and I couldn't find anything on an architect, I think it was a standard plan. There was very little documented early on in regard to this building. There weren't even any pictures of it being constructed or later on or what have you. So I do think it was a standard plan.
And then there was, a question about the copy of the report. And for everyone to know, Miranda has sent information to MKSK, who are the designers for this park, in the hopes that somehow this building could be incorporated into the design. And I know that Columbus Landmarks will work somehow to make sure that we have a record of this, to archive it, to YouTube it. I'm not sure how we'll do that, but you can contact us, and we'll figure out how to make the information accessible. Here's another question. Was it balloon framed originally, or was it all brick masonry construction?
I believe it was balloon framed originally. I wouldn't be able to tell unless I actually got in there, but that's what I think.
Great. Any other questions? And people are asking for a contact for MKSK. We won't broadcast their thing now, but we will we'll make sure that we can put people together with this. So. Yes, and we will add this video to YouTube so that anybody can access this using the link that will be available from the Columbus Landmarks website.
oh, great. Thank you.
Excellent. So, all right. Well, Miranda, I want to thank you so very much for your presentation. It was, I feel like we were there. You took us zooming through that building inside and out, and it was really, really well done. I know you did well with your classwork, and Columbus Landmarks in our city has benefited from all this hard research. So
it was my pleasure. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So if no further questions, we will end our lunch and learn. And just a reminder, for those of you who want AIA credit, to do the go to your account in the AIA and sign into that course. So with that, oh, is there another question or no? Sorry about that. Okay. If you can type your questions in the chat, that would be helpful. Because we have everyone on mute. If you had a question, Roy, you can type it in there. And as you think of things, please feel free to contact us later on. We know how to get in touch with Miranda.
I'm here, I'll be around.
Perfect, and we'll be happy to help at any time. And I encourage you to take a trip out, take a look at this property on Case Road.
And there is public parking now as well. So, and you can follow the path, take a look at the park as well. It's really beautiful.
It is. And as Miranda said, it's such an asset in a highly developed area to have this amount of green space that we can preserve. It's fabulous.
Definitely.
Great. All right. Okay, everyone. Well, with that, I think we are, oops, we have one more. Nope, we're good. All right. All right. Well, again, thank you so much to Miranda and for the friends of the sheep farm. And with that, our session is ended. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.